take two. Obviously, things went off the rails. I had dogs making all kinds of noise. So, this is what we do. We just keep going no matter what. I had a goal of doing it today. So, here we are. So, we talked today, and what we're talking about is the art of the soft sell. You'll notice a lot of my content has been focused lately around collaboration and sales, and it's mainly because I'm trying to focus on areas that I've had trouble with and challenges with. And today's article really spoke to different methods of how you look at soft sells and how you can essentially get clicks or get content or kind of create a magnetism to what you're doing as opposed to constantly like just pushing out and hard selling people. I find that when I am in a situation where people are trying to hard sell me, I just shut down. I can't, I like, my brain just goes blank. So really quickly, if you're trying to figure out like, where is this illustrious article that Marissa is talking about? It is on LinkedIn. It is on the newsletter that I recently started through a feature that I had been given beta access to, which was the LinkedIn newsletter. What's great about it is Strategy Solved is really the arm of our company that is aimed at getting people kind of actionable things that they can put into place right away. Most of the tools and techniques that we recommend do not require extensive investment. And so what I try to do is give you guys some ingredients of what is going to give you the output you want. Obviously, if you want the recipe, that's going to cost you something, but I'm going to go ahead and drop this into the comments so that you can grab access to it. If you have the free version of LinkedIn, you'll be able to grab that. You'll be able to go and see what I'm talking about, and you'll be able to not only just kind of see the types of content that we're putting out, but also you'll be able to, in my opinion, you'll be able to get some really tangible things that you can put into place. And maybe you just don't have a huge budget, but you're trying to figure out where to get started. So let's kind of dissect the different elements of the article. Really what we talked about was, and I will get with you on what that method of 246% ROI is. But when we're trying to do that, we've all come to those funnel pages where, there's just the buy now, and then you go there, and then there's an upsell, and you end up, it's a $19 product, and before you know it, you've spent $200. And sometimes you feel good about that. And sometimes you're like, I just want the $19 product. Just give me the thing that I want. And if I really like it, I'll go back and buy more. And so what we're looking at is that sales type, that page can be incredibly effective, but it isn't the only way to generate leads. It's not the only way to look at that. So let's look at something that everyone has the capacity to do, but some people feel weird about doing, and that's storytelling. Storytelling is going to be popular for a variety of reasons, but it's just one way to get people to read and click through your page. Now, some people are very adverse to long form content, but what we know based on how content reads is sometimes, yes, a mix of short form content and long form sales pages works really well because you're really trying to kind of walk through this journey with someone that's trying to work with you. But a lot of times I don't need the stats and the facts and all of the figures, right? I just need enough to make a decision. I just need enough to do this one particular thing. And what we find is that over time, when people are challenged, they're like, I just want what I want, right? So what I want you to think about is, let's look at some really practical things that you can start implementing in your business. Now, the article goes into a bunch of different things, but before we go into that 246% ROI, let's talk about these practical tips. And so just for the purposes of definition, let's be really, really clear. Hard sell is really straightforward. It is transactional. You know that person wants to make a sale, and it can result in more sales in the short term, right? But a lot of people perceive it as very aggressive, uncomfortable, and pushy. So they may end up buying the product but not using it, or avoiding you, or not engaging with you later, right? So what's really interesting is after doing an analysis of more than 4,500 emails in a B2B context, what we looked at is that aggressive, hard sell emails did have a higher response rate. However, those response rates were negative. And what we saw is that more subtle kind of verbiage and kind of soft drip of content that wasn't aggressive saw a 31% response rate versus 13 for those aggressive emails. And so what it did, at least from our perspective, was looking at it and you're basically allowing a customer to make a decision for themselves as opposed to the sales professional coming in and saying, this is what you need, right? And it just depends on your style. It just depends. What we find in the executive leadership space, right, is that there's two different styles of leader. There's the one that just wants to be told what to do, and then there's one person that just wants to be walked along through that process. So that's not the only benefit of a soft sell, but let's look at it. Like, first things first, when we are looking at soft sell, why would it make sense, or why would you ever implement kind of this approach in your business? Well, here's why. The first things first is it's going to put a little less pressure on your customer. People are already pressed for time. People are already kind of at their wits' end with their ability to do certain things. And so if you have the ability to remove stress from someone's life, take advantage of that, right? You're not pushing it. You're just giving them some tools, and then they're kind of avoiding that resistance. Okay. So you're kind of opening that relationship. Now, keep in mind, for some people, if you're trying to generate cash and revenue, it depends. Like, that may or may not work for you. The second thing that's going to do is create some trust. Essentially, in this process, when you're trying to create trust, what you're showing is you're giving some value without asking for anything in return. Now, I'm not talking about fake value. I'm not talking about the people that connect with you on LinkedIn and say, oh my God, I want to connect with executives. And then they send you an entire PDF and portfolio of like their ebook and their speech. I block those people. I'm not interested in that. What we're showing them is that you care about more than just making a sale and want to help them overcome their unique challenges and achieve their goals. As a result, not only are they more willing to engage with your brand, but what we show the statistics on longevity is that you'll see a 91% close rate, right? 91% of people who are soft sold to will make the purchase, will feel good about the purchase, and end up being long-time customers. And again, since it's a comfortable process for the buyer, you'll see them be around for the long term. Now, if you're in a more of like a widget-based business where you're selling things, obviously this approach isn't going to be the same for you. It's going to be totally different. And so that last piece of kind of looking at this soft sell is really like increasing your brand awareness, right? Even though you're not pushing your brand onto people, what you're doing is just creating generic kind of brand awareness. And with this, we're focused more on the quality and the relevancy of the content to the people that you're speaking to, as opposed to some construct just to sell a product or a service. And so that helpful content is really speaking to them. So where are we seeing this helpful content? We're seeing it on Instagram Reels. We're seeing it on TikTok. We're seeing it in LinkedIn as people share things. We're seeing it on Twitter. We're seeing it everywhere. But what we know is that word of mouth from people coming on there, like I know from the day that I put on a live stream for the next 7 days, that people will be looking at that, commenting on that, sending me messages. I am less worried about whether someone comments on the live feed as I am when someone actually sends me a message. And that to me is the most powerful thing. That's the only reason why I do this, is because people are saying, hey, like this resonates with me. I like this. This is something that it speaks to what I'm doing. So here's your tips, like when you're trying to do this. Number one, as you're starting to go through this process, you want to perform some research on the audience that you're going after, right? If you're going after a very analytical, cerebral kind of group of people, stories could fall flat with them, right? You want to make sure that you're not overwhelming someone with emotion, right? I've met a couple of entrepreneurs, and that's kind of their process when they share their story. They get very emotional. That makes me very uncomfortable. And for whatever reason, I lose trust in someone and a little bit of respect, not because I don't see their story, but that style it's so jarring. I can't even focus on what they're trying to talk to me about because I'm so distracted with the fact that a total stranger is crying in front of me, right? The second thing that you have to look at is active listening, right? When you are listening and asking questions, the goal is to be focused on what the person is telling you, right? And that's really hard to do. So something really subtle like putting your phone away or just making sure you're focused here if you're on a screen can be really helpful. Now, the other thing that you want to look at is obviously you're building positive relationships. You're giving your prospects enough time and space. Obviously, follow up is always good, but too much follow up is gross. It does take on average 8 touches to get in contact with someone. So if you have this expectation that you had a great meeting, you send them a follow up and they're not on your timeline. Remember, they weren't on your timeline anyway. It's their timeline, not yours. And there's ways that you can set up systems to be friendly with that. We go into some of that in some of our programming, ensure that there's mutual benefit, automate some of your processes along the way, right? So, a couple things that you can do to kind of highlight that. Now, the reason we are going so deep into this kind of method, again, is because we know based on data that there is significant benefit to looking at soft sell and different approaches that can work exceptionally well through this process. So again, when we're in this process and we're saying, hey, what do we want to be doing? We want to be doing some good things around our marketing and our contacts, but also we want to make sure that we're doing this. Now, this method that I referenced, right, has a lot to do with volunteer leadership. Now, when you donate time and knowledge, you're going to reach a lot of people. I've always been very strategic about where I donate time and who I donate time to. But Dr. Ore, who's a colleague and a past client of ours, did essentially like a quantification of the ROI of volunteer leadership and what it adds to the value of your business and kind of essentially like ROI in your career. It's about 246% was the quantification. So if you're one of those people that's like, why would I ever give away time? Why would I ever volunteer? Why would I do that? The research and the statistics around that are astounding. So again, if you're putting yourself in a position to be around people that are decision makers, say boards of a local charity that are incredibly important, or there's people that you want to reach and there's an organization, the goal is to be kind of strategically altruistic in this process, right? You're not going to go in there and be like, hey, this is me, you got to build relationships with people. But what we know is that when we look at that work, you can really see how it benefits. All of a sudden, you maybe don't have to go through an RFP process because the executive knows you, or people know that you do great work in the community. And so they relate that, oh, they must also be great in their business. So that is that 246% ROI that I was mentioning. And so what we know is that this doesn't rule out your ability to ask for a call to action. You should have a call to action in everything you do. You should have it on your sales pages. You should have ways for people to contact you. At the same time, you have to understand where that balance is between asking for the business and not being too pushy. So with that, our live stream is almost coming to an end today. Stay tuned. Take a moment. If you haven't already, I did drop it in the comments. That is the LinkedIn newsletter. It is called Strategy Solved. We launched that newsletter, I want to say, just about a week ago. 2 weeks ago, and we have about 737 subscribers who have just been eating up all of this content. And we are enjoying it so much because we're really just crowdsourcing what people want to hear about, and we're sharing our experiences. And we're also letting people know, like, there is more than one way to do this, and you don't have to listen to someone that is using psychology to manipulate you into making a purchase. Like that, there's all kinds of ways to go about ethically selling in your business. And again, join us, subscribe, hang out. And with that, I leave you to it. Happy Wednesday. Hope you guys have a great weekend.